I'm Claire Donovan, and I live in Sheffield, England. This is my story. I've always thought of myself as a rational person. I believe in science, in logic, in routines that make sense. My life is ordinary in the best way. I work a normal job, keep to a schedule, and most nights I'm in bed by the same time, drifting into sleep without much thought. Dreams have always been a part of my life, of course, but they've usually been like anyone else's: strange, vivid, sometimes emotional, but never life changing. Until one night, a few months ago, when I went to sleep like normal and woke up somewhere else entirely. That night wasn't special. I wasn't unusually tired or stressed. I brushed my teeth, checked my phone, turned off the lamp, and closed my eyes. Nothing felt unusual. But when I opened them again, I wasn't in my bedroom in Sheffield. I was in a completely different room, a bedroom I didn't recognize. For a moment, I felt the kind of confusion you get when you walk into a room and forget what you came for, that brief, disoriented pause. But then I looked down. Resting his head in my lap was my ex-boyfriend, James. We'd broken up 2 years earlier in my real life, but in this place, in this reality, that had never happened. He looked up at me with the kind of familiarity that said we'd never been apart. And in that instant, everything snapped into place. It was like a curtain lifting. The confusion disappeared, replaced by absolute clarity. Suddenly, I knew exactly who I was, where I was, and what my life had been here. I had memories, real, solid memories that stretched back years in this version of reality. It didn't feel like a dream. It felt like waking up into a different life. The strangest part was how natural it felt. There was no sense that I was someone else. I wasn't playing a role or watching a movie. I was me. My thoughts, my emotions, my body, all mine. But the life around me had shifted, as though in this world I had taken a different path, and James was still by my side. We joked and teased each other the way we used to when we were together. Then all of a sudden, he got quiet, almost shy, and said, "Let's do this." I asked him, "Do what?" He nudged me, half nervous, and said, "You know, get married." I laughed and scolded him for asking me in such a casual way, but as he looked at me, I felt memories flood in. Memories from my real relationship with him, but also memories from this dream world version of us. Dates we'd gone on, conversations we'd had, moments we'd shared that I don't recognize from my real life, but felt every bit as genuine. And in that moment, without hesitation, I said yes. From there, the years unfolded, one after another, seamlessly, without gaps or skips. I lived each day completely. Not like normal dreams where time fast forwards or things happen in fragments. This was continuous. Every boring commute to work, every silly argument over nothing, every quiet evening watching TV together. I lived it all, and the extraordinary moments too. Our wedding day, our honeymoon, the birth of our son, birthdays, funerals, anniversaries, milestones. I experienced them all in detail, so rich, so real that I can still recall them now with the same clarity I recall events from my waking life. The most powerful part of it all was becoming a mother. In my real life, I've never been sure about having kids. I've always wondered if I was nurturing enough, if I would ever really understand that bond. I've even told myself that if I did have a child, it probably wouldn't be biological. But in that dream, when I saw my son for the first time, something inside me changed forever. It was like a flower blooming in my chest, a kind of love that was unlike anything I'd ever felt before, a love that eclipsed everything else. Suddenly, the idea of children made sense in a way it never had before. I remember holding him tiny and fragile and feeling as if the universe had shifted. I knew in that moment that my purpose wasn't just to exist, but to protect him, to guide him, to love him with everything I had. That bond carried through the years as he grew. I watched his first steps, heard his first words, celebrated his first day of school. I can still see his face at different ages, picture the sound of his laughter. If I could draw, I could sketch every stage of his childhood from memory. That's how vivid it remains. Life in that world wasn't perfect. There were arguments, disappointments, struggles, just like in real life. We lost people we loved. We faced hardships. We had days that felt long and dull. But all of it, the highs and the lows, was real. And I grew as a person through those years. I gained wisdom, resilience, and a deep sense of connection. Then one day, without warning, it was gone. I didn't feel myself drifting out of it. There was no fade to black, no sense that it was coming to an end. It was as sudden as someone snapping their fingers. One moment I was there, living that life. The next, I was awake in my bed in Sheffield, gasping for breath like I'd been underwater. I shot upright, disoriented, staring around my familiar bedroom as though I'd been dropped into a foreign place. And then it hit me. The grief. It was like being crushed by a wave. I'd lost everything in an instant. My husband, my friends, the life I had built, and most painfully, my son. I could still feel him. I could still remember his hugs, his voice, his smile. And now he was gone. Not dead, not taken from me in any way that others could understand. Just gone. A whole life ripped away like it had never existed. But to me, it had. The sorrow that settled in me was unlike anything I'd ever known. Real grief, the kind that gnaws at your chest and leaves you hollow. I walked through the following days in a fog, struggling to reconcile what I had experienced. Because how do you explain mourning a life you never lived? How do you grieve a child who never existed in this world? I tried to rationalize it. I told myself it was just a dream, that my brain had somehow stitched together something that felt real. But the problem was that it didn't feel like a dream. Dreams usually have gaps, or they're disjointed, or you wake up with only fragments. This was different. This was whole, complete, continuous. I had 15 years of memories that were as real and detailed as the memories I carry from my waking life. And I can't explain it. I've always considered myself a scientific, logical person. I've read about lucid dreams, about astral projection, about how the mind can trick itself. But nothing I've ever come across explains what I went through. Nothing makes sense of how I could live an entire lifetime in a single night with memories and emotions so real they left me grieving for months. Even now, I still feel the loss. I still miss him, my son who never was. I still think about James and the life we had in that world. I can close my eyes and remember conversations, sights, sounds, sensations. I could remember the way my hand felt in his, the way our son's hair smelled when I held him close. These aren't fragments. They're whole, solid memories. And it makes me feel crazy sometimes. Because how do you explain that? How do you tell people that you're grieving a husband and a child that never existed in this reality? How do you tell them that you miss years of experiences that were never real? I've tried talking about it, but most people can't understand. They nod, maybe share a story of a vivid dream, but it's not the same. This wasn't a dream, not in the way we usually think of dreams. It's left me questioning everything. What if dreams aren't just dreams? What if there are other realities, other lives we slip into when we sleep? What if for 7 hours I crossed into a world where my life had taken a different path? And if that's true, then what does it mean for who we are, for what's real? I don't know if I'll ever get answers, but I do know this. What I experienced has changed me. It's made me more empathetic, more aware of the fleeting nature of time and love. It's made me realize how deeply we can feel and how easily it can be taken away. I still carry the grief with me. I probably always will. But I also carry the love of a husband I never had in this world, and the love of a child who never existed here. That love was real, no matter what anyone says. And in some way, I think it'll always be a part of me. So if you've ever experienced something like this, know that you're not alone. I don't have answers, but I have understanding. And sometimes that's enough.